Welcome to Tea with Trish. Get ready to spill the tea.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining Tea with Trish. I'm here with
Carla Maria, and I'm a psychic medium.
and so much more. So, how old were you when you first realized that you were?
Maybe four-ish, 4 or 5 years old.
How do you realize something like that when you're 4?
Because I would see and first of all, I would see spirits and experience them, and it would be scary then, of course, when you're a child, because you see it all. You see the demons, you see the this, the that, and I could know things about people. And I remember, and I grew up Catholic, very strict Catholic, like Filipino home. But I had this interesting thing too, where it's like my father comes from a part of the Philippines where they're very mixed. So, we have a Spanish last name. Like my father's like Filipino, Spanish, French, and a whole bunch of other random DNAs. And my mom has like Filipino, Cuban, and Chinese in her. But she was raised in a certain way in the Philippines, like very, very strict Catholic. So it was like my gifts were taught, don't use them, they're evil, they're bad. And also it was eerie because I would, even people in the church, I'd be like, I don't like this person, blah, 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 something, something, something.
Yeah.
And I'd say my mom would be like, oh, you're like, how could you say this? This person does whatever. And then something be revealed about them later that's like really shady or bad.
Yeah.
And so that's how I understood, like younger, but I didn't know that I inherited them. They were carried in my bloodline, right? Like, so just like you can inherit the color of your hair, your eyes, that is something also carried in the DNA. So my father's mother passed away before I was born. And, my dad's side of the family, they live further away. So we were always with my mom's side mostly. And, basically I realized and found out when I was like 14, 15, that a bunch of my cousins on my father's side of the family that are like, second cousins, but you know how it is with the big families. Like, I have 40 first cousins.
Yeah.
That's not even including second, third. And you know how it is. Like, so I didn't know or realize that, like, I call them my cousins because they're my age. My dad's like, well, they're my cousins. And I go, whatever, they're my age. It's all the same.
Yeah,
We
those are my
Filipino, you know how it
cousins.
is? It's
Yeah.
like, as a Latino families, it's like,
Like, is
it's
that
all
my
family.
aunt?
We all cousins,
Is that
okay?
my aunt or my cousin?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Everybody is family,
Yeah.
period. Like, don't get all technical.
Yeah.
Okay? It's
Yeah.
family. Like, and then I started realizing at a family reunion that, like, oh, a lot of them had these gifts too. That I wasn't some weirdo freak. Like, I was kind of taught, obviously, at first. And then I found out that my, grandmother had been like a seer in a lot of ways. And then her sister was the one who actually told me, mind you, Sally is no longer alive, but she was one of the ones who first pushed me to actually learn how to use it so I could live a more manageable life. And so that's how I found out. And then I also found out later in time, because my mom was so scared of it, but my mom's mom also had the ability, she couldn't see people's, like, read things about people's life, but she could see and communicate to spirits. But, she was very scared of it, so she kind of left it at that.
Wow. And you've taken it different directions. Obviously, you've incorporated it into different things. So I know you model. And you're on taking your gift into TV as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've started to, like, I'm working with like a new PR person who's really taken it more to, like, those entertainment levels, because I would work with people who, and I don't put people's names out there because everything is private. And it's like I'd work with people who were like well-known actors and certain, musicians, artists, etc. And so now it's like, okay, now we're working towards, like, okay, actually doing that, like, more on that television type of level, like filmings and recordings, a lot of radio shows and things, to where it's like, okay, people who are open to it and like willing to be filmed and to have whatever, so that it can start to be out there. Because a lot of people, and one thing I remember, like a client of mine from New York said, like when she first met me, it was a referral through somebody else in Hollywood. And it was when I first launched the business, or was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, I didn't even think or want to honestly make it my work. I was like, no, y'all are crazy. I'm just learning this so that I can, like, shut it off when I want to and not be harassed by spirits, follow me home and expecting all these favors, handling their unfinished business.
Yeah.
But then it was like the message came through from, like, God and, like, my angels, like, no, this is going to be your work in your life. And you have this much longer in this life. Like, you're living now, you're going to know when you have to exit. And whether or not you want to, it's like, it's going to fall apart, not because of anything you do wrong, but because it has to. So either you can get on board now, prepare yourself, save some money, do what you need in your life, or you can wait, let it unfold, and then you're going to be running around like chicken,
Yeah.
the head cut off.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it took me to that route. So now my PR person that I'm working with he's really actively, because he obviously has a lot of people in those entertainment circles, all of those contacts. And so now we're branching it into that direction there.
Amazing. So eventually you maybe will have a show
Yeah.
that is kind of like all of those popular shows out there now,
exactly.
right? And you'll be the face, and you'll be traveling around and reading all of these celebrities, right?
Yeah, doing readings,
yeah.
exorcisms, whatever it is that needs to be done.
Exorcisms.
Yeah, because I do like energy work, like
Oh
so
my gosh, yeah.
home clearings. Like I've worked on like places like haunted hospitals, like all those
What is the
things.
scariest? What would it be called? Like job or like what would it be called?
Let
Like
me
what's the
see.
scariest thing you've ever done in that field?
I think like the scariest one I ever dealt with was actually in Hollywood, and it was like I have a very close friend, and he was working at the time as like the HR director of this like hospital. Like it's like not hospice, but like like I guess rehabilitation. You know what I mean? Like type of thing. Some people on hospice in a separate area, and he called me and he goes, "Oh, Carla, like I need you to come to my work and to read the building and to see if you can do something. Like all these nurses won't go to these certain rooms. They won't do these things. They complain of like all this, like these spirits and weird things. And then they're saying, but he's spiritual too. And he has his grandmother, he's Italian, but also part Native American. So he has some intuitive gifts, not refined like mine. And so he understands the spirit world, and he said, come to this hospital, like, also too, there's like all these old women that when they stay in a certain room, they like describe this guy, always the same guy, same thing they're wearing. Nobody wears those outfits or whatever, right? And they're like, and they say that they're raped by this guy. They all give a very similar story, no matter who the woman is over the years. They're like, nobody works here that looks like that at all. But how could all of these women be like lying about this? And so I was just like, okay, yeah. And I always look in psychically and like do my pre work. And I did. But then, like, once I got in there, I was just like, oh, like, no. Like, right? But like, this is way worse than I thought it was. And I asked God, like, show me what is the history that could have created this? Because, when I got in there, I started seeing. And then I was basically like what I saw was like in, in the 80s or so when like Reagan's around and when they basically shut down all these mental asylums and things, and how Skid Row's there, and they literally put a lot of these people who are mentally ill on the streets. This had been a facility that houses people in it looked like the 60s, 50s, like anywhere from like 40s, 50s, 60s ish era, right then it started transferring to other businesses. Because what I saw was like weird experimental things like lobotomies, like all these things. But then I would walk through, and I told them when I got there, I said, don't tell me which rooms things happen in, because they're like, there's a room, people go in healthy. They go in there, and all of a sudden they have a stroke, they have a heart attack, with nothing that would have caused it before. And I told them when I got there, all the nurses came and they started telling me different things about cases. And I said, okay, just don't tell me what rooms they are. Let me walk through the halls and see. And so I would go by each thing. And the first thing I walked by, I remember it was now something else, but I got the creepiest thing, and I said, okay, that used to be like a shower room. Like I see like, like it's like a shower room where they would like, because those people in those facilities back then, they would just shower them in these things that are very open, whatever. And I said, there's like a lot of rapes and certain things that happen there. So like there's like stuff there. And then like, some of them like validated certain things. They're like, it's really creepy. Like people always feel like they're being watched or whatever. And like they've had weird accounts. And I went one by one through each room. And some rooms, there's not much, there's not whatever. And then I'd stop in front of certain doors and I go, okay, in this room here, is this where the women see, because that one spirit they kept talking about, this male that they described that would rape them all, I saw him in there, and he was like, it was weird because it was like normally they're very like almost like holographic images, but it was like he was like almost like as if it's a human, like very solid, like heavy energy, right? And he was not nice. Like he was like, because they cuss me out. Like they
Yeah.
call me every name in the
Yeah.
book, and I don't care because I know I'm a protector. I know what
Yeah.
to do. And it was when like I saw him face to face, and then I like said to them like, this is the room where those women, all the old women who come here, they all describe somebody raping them. This is what it's like. And they're like, that's the room. And then I went and I said, this room here, like in the hall, I said, this is where people have all the heart attacks and strokes when they had no physical things to have caused it before, right? And it happens within like 48, 72 hours. They're like, yeah. I said, it's really weird because when I look in that room, and they're like, because I wanted to see, can I figure out each room that it's happening in without being told? And I said, there's a spirit in there. And like, he was like a sadistic, like kind of person to where he would mess with the electronic things or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like somehow, whether it's electrocuting, it was like, when they do shock therapy and all those things in those old days. And I said, and this spirit like did that to a lot of people, kill a lot of people, so trapped him in that plane. But that's what he does, is he likes, like he gets off, like that's his form of serial killing.
Yeah.
And so one by one, I go by the different rooms and I tell them what's in there, what I see. And then I wrote them all down because it's just him with me at that point. And then he would write down every single one, and then he'd be like, show the nurses after. And they'd like freak out and go, that's exactly the rooms. Those are the rooms that all these weird things happen. I go, well, this is why.
Yeah.
And
so when you go into a place like that, are you able to, I know you're able to help them by telling them what's going on and what they're up against, but are you able to clear it? And
most of the time, yes. Sometimes you can't with everything, but the majority of them, like that hospital, a ton of it was able to, like the harassing spirits that say are attaching to people or creating these weird things, yes. But then like there's certain times, like we went to the Roosevelt on New Year's Eve, and I said to Jen, I was like, we need to get out of here right now. Because it was like weird. As soon as the blues dropped, there was like an energy shift, and I just saw all these things flooding the walls and everything, and I was like, okay, nope. Like, we joke and say, okay, we got to get out of the clubs and the events before it's demon time hits, No, this was like literal demon time.
Oh my God.
I'm like, no, girl, like this is like not demon time. Like we joke about like demon time, demon time. And we left, right? And then we saw like online the next day, all the streets that we would have driven through, all these cops, like more cops we ever seen on the streets. And these like, they barricaded the streets because all these people are going crazy because I said these demons and entities stuck in this hotel are going to go into those people. And then weird things started happening.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
That these...
If like your aura is like weak. So like say people are going through a lot of difficulty, hardship, etc. They're stressed. Maybe we're really sick for a long time. Dealing with really hard loss of some sort. It's like, your aura is like your protective shield. And that gets weakened during periods like that, right? Even things like, okay, too much drug use, too much alcohol all the time, like, you know what I mean? Like, or too much like stress and not sleeping enough weakens our aura, right? All of these different things. That's why it's important, like, okay, take the time to work on ourselves, take our time to recharge when we can, or do the things that balance you out, like being with your family, what makes you happy, that strengthens your aura again. Because it recharges you, right?
Got it. So how do people react to you when you tell them what you do?
Oh, it's so weird. Either they're like super fascinated, super scared, or they have no idea what the hell it means. Okay. And then a lot of people are weird, because the whole thing, like most people are used to like a psychic or a medium being like an old woman, who's like whatever.
Yeah.
And so then, then there's the whole thing, because I'm like, and, I even dealt with all this prejudice in the spiritual community, because it's like, oh, you can't dress like this, and, you're too much about material things and all this, all that stuff, which we call like spiritual egoism, right?
Okay.
But then it's like, people maybe they lack certain qualities, but then that's their thing, they have their ego around. So it's all across the board, but like I'm able to ask God, okay, just show me then. Like, what is making them react this way? So I don't react as a person. Because I used to be a real hothead. I mean, I can still be when people try to cross me the wrong way. You know what I mean? I only pull it out if I have to.
Yeah.
But, like, nowadays I'll go, before I want to, like, fire off my tongue.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll be like,
You're
okay.
like, in your future, I see me kicking your
Yeah.
ass.
Well, and because too, since I'm a medium and a psychic, I can see exactly what your wounds are, what your insecurities are, and I can highlight that, and I can just take that knife and just jab it in. You know what I'm saying? So I try not to be that person.
Oh, I didn't think about
Yeah,
that.
right? Like, so like back in the day, I knew I had certain gifts, but like I always knew exactly what to say if someone pissed me off that would just wreck them. Like, you know,
You're
you
like,
see-
your ears are
yeah,
too big.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden,
they're
no,
like,
like real talk, like whatever the thing was. And it would just come out like word vomit, right?
Wow.
And so now I'm careful, but I'll go like, one tool I use, and even people who are not psychics, is I go, when people are trying to send you the weird projections, certain things, I go, put them in a mirror box, right? And ask that box to just be sealed with God's light. Because what that mirror box does is whatever they're trying to project to you, right, of their own self-hate, because when people are like that, it's because they don't like something in them, you know? That mirror box forces them to look at themselves. And you're not using no magic, you're not sending anything bad to anyone. There's no, you know, you're not creating a karmic ripple. And so it's like to make them to look at themselves, and also so their projections can't be harmful to you.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. And sometimes I'll go, okay, God put them in the mirror box. And once they're in that box, it's shown to me, well, this is why this person just acted this way to you or judged you in this way. And it'll force me to have compassion for them.
Yeah.
Because I'll see why they act that way.
Wow. That is, I'm fascinated. And I think when I met you, I actually met you and we sat down.
Yeah, we talked about
and
it.
we just kind of, you know, and I'm pretty reserved. I'm quiet. I'm, you know.
And I
until
remember
get
you
to know
mentioning
you.
though, but you had a client, so you were open. You knew and understood things already.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, and I'm open to that. And I do think that obviously it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Do you get people being what is the word? Skeptics.
Yeah, all the time. And like, if they want me to read something, I will. Or what I just tell them is like, you know, like my favorite response is always like, it's okay. I doesn't affect me or my money if you believe in it or not. And I go, and the truth doesn't care if you believe in it or not. It doesn't change what it is.
Right.
Right? The truth doesn't need to defend itself. So I don't need to defend it. If somebody is like, I'm believing that it's not real, I'm like, okay, cool. That's wonderful. When you die and you leave this body, you know, my consciousness can bilocate. I'm going to go up there and find you and just say, God, set a timer and go up there wherever the up I am and just go, so remember me? Like, right? Because I am still a little sassy and petty sometimes, you know? We still the same soul.
They're over here saying we're the same person. I'm like, were we twins in the past life?
Maybe that's why I like you so much. I was like...
So I saw you get emotional a little while ago as you were reading some things for me.
Yes.
And we got emotional together.
Yeah. So unexpectedly too.
So unexpectedly. But does that happen to you often?
If it is something that was like the energy is really, really strong, like meaning that the soul consciousness imprint is still strong and present to that degree. Like it happens usually maybe in mediumship readings because you're connecting to a person's deceased loved one. So whatever the emotions are of that soul, like if they had any regret or sadness or things left unsaid, you feel it. Like I feel it as if it's my own emotion, but that's also part of like, I think the connection, how I'm reading, you know, like you're sharing that energy field and space. So it's like an inevitable thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but you never know. So it's like only when it's really heavy. There's mediumship readings and the spirits, happy light, no regrets, no unsaid things, right? And you don't feel emotional. And then there's times where, you know, in the past life reading, like with him, where it's like his soul so deeply feels that sense of gratitude, that sense of love and wanting to repay you for everything you did in that past life. And it's still so strong in his soul's consciousness that when I'm in that energy field, I felt it. Like, I was like, well, why am I crying? I was like, oh my God. I'm like, yes, I know these emotions are here, but like, whoa, like it blew me away.
Well, now I know. So I'm going to ask him to clean my room. I'm just kidding. I'm like, hey, you want to repay me? Go clean the kitchen. I love it. So, okay. So I know, we talked about some of the scarier things that have happened. Um, we've talked a lot about a lot of stuff already, and it's pretty amazing. What is the most like beautiful experience you've had doing this?
Okay, so I think there's quite a few. I think the one of my favorite ones I would have to say is like I have volunteered with like in conjunction with like the LA Sheriff's Department, LAPD for like certain things, and one of them was like working with a program called Emerging Leaders, where basically you are dealing with people that are repeat offenders, usually two strikes in, right, and that was like honestly my favorite type of situation, to work with because it's like, people misunderstand sometimes people who have engaged in criminal behavior and certain things. They judge, da, 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 da. Well, you don't know a person's story, you don't know whatever, and the intuitive has a different view, right? And so not only that, like those are usually the most resistant people. Like, and I remember the first time I did it, like the guy was a retired like head of like LA Sheriff's Department. And when he first suggested I come in, I go, Clyde, I said, you want me to go in here and to go to these guys that are like all on parole and they're repeat offenders.
Yeah.
And some of them are like literally like heads of gangs. And you want me to go in there and be like, hi, I'm going to do energy work on you and certain things. I said, you are out your mind,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, and I remember him saying to me, look, if you can reach this audience, you can reach anybody. And he was right. And so I did. And I remember asking God, saying, take me out, like take Carla out and you speak through me. You tell me, like you just basically take over and speak through me and say what I need to say so I can create a connection, build rapport, and them understand based on what their experiences are. And right, it's almost like I check out. And when I do readings, I check out, meaning that I don't want my ego to be in it. I want God and your guides, the ones to be telling you from your perspective. I don't want to pollute it with how I perceive the world. I need it to be in the way that you can receive it, that you understand it, right? And so that's why like people are like, oh, you don't speak in spiritual jargon and the whatever terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most people aren't going to understand that. So
Right.
what's the point? I'm gonna just be me, right? And so there was a case there that day that happened, and there's something called a Kundalini awakening, which is like a massive spiritual awakening. There's monks and people that meditate for years and years to try to attain it, and it's like what they refer to as like it's the bursting of the energy. Where like if you imagine and picture like God's energy and the energy of the earth, like bursts up through your chakras, through the crown, and it connects you. So you're connected to the grounding and healing of the planet, as well as the guidance and of your higher self and through God. And I had a spontaneous one when I was in my 20s. So my gifts were already there, but then I had it, and all of a sudden they amplified by like 30 within the course of a week.
Wow, that was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah,
You
it
realized
got-
that you had these
Yeah,
gifts.
but it took a whole different level because I actually used a lot of drugs and alcohol when I was very young to try to stifle them. And I went, I had I had a very good upbringing, but a lot of intense other forms of abuse in my childhood. So I was like, I was very like like a heavy addict for a long time because it used to shut off my gifts and I liked it. Then in my 20s, it was like, nope, it didn't matter what I did.
Yeah.
And so when I went through that, Kundalini awakening, it was not intentional. I didn't try to awaken it. And then all of a sudden, it was like my whole life got rerouted in a week's time. My gifts expanded. And that's why I sought training because I was like, I couldn't separate the physical world from the non-physical. There was no control. It was all here, all at once. And I was just like, nope, this is what like schizophrenic people must be like, right?
Yes.
But in a different form, right?
Right.
And so when I was working with him, like I said, normally people spend a long time to attain that. And I remember there was one gentleman that I could tell was really like agitated and anxious to leave the class because they're obligated to be there. If you out on parole, like you gotta have that checked in to show you went to that class. So you're already dealing with resistance, people who don't want to be there,
Yeah.
And this gentleman, I see him kind of in a heated conversation with Clyde at the end of class, and Clyde asked me basically like if I could, he begs me, can you do like energy work or try to talk to this guy? we'll go to like a private area of the Agape Spiritual Center where it was at the time, and whatever. And I said, yeah, of course. Why? What's going on? And he goes, well, this guy is like literally at the head of like one of like the biggest gangs in LA, and he named this part of like Los Angeles, and I was familiar with it, and I was like, okay. And he goes, yesterday, his cousin who was at the top before
Mm-hmm.
got shot and killed exact same place where this guy's uncle, his cousin's father, who had been the former head,
Mm-hmm.
was shot and killed 6 years before. So the rival gang did it on purpose because you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it was up to him. He's trying to get out of there because he wants to make a call to be able, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And basically, he's like, if he gets out, he does this, there is going to be a lot of bloodshed.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this is the first time I worked with him. I'm like, Clyde, so what the fuck? I said, this is horrible. First of all, I said,
Mm-hmm.
but what do you expect me? Like, what do
Yeah.
you
Where
want
do
me
I
to
come
do
into
about
play?
this?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't know. Just bring him back there. Try something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, well, I'll try something, but I can't force him to stay here. And I remember I asked this guy, I said, well, and of course he's itching to get out, but he also don't want to be getting arrested for something like this
Mm-hmm.
because he's required to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he finally agrees. And so I just said, show me, God, like, what can I say or do to create a connection to this man and to know what I need to do right away?
Mm-hmm.
And God shows me a child, adorable little boy, like maybe 4 years old. And then I hear like a name. And
Mm-hmm.
I say, okay, I'm seeing like a boy 4 years old, and I'm hearing this name.
Mm-hmm.
Who's this person to you?
Mm-hmm.
And he just like, all of a sudden, he kind of froze up and he looked at me crazy. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
that's my son. And I was like, okay. I said, then for your son, can you sit here for just 30 minutes? Give me 30 minutes of your time. And then
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're going to do, that's got nothing to do with me. I don't
Mm-hmm.
live your life. I can't understand what you have been through, what kind of decision you have to make, what comes with what you do or don't do.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but just for your son,
Yeah.
just for so-and-so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me just 30 minutes? And he agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started running as much as I could. Soul contract clearings, calling in his ancestors. Like, I'm in everything in between,
Yeah.
and just praying that even if he is going to do this because he has to or he feels he has to for the highest possible outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not for me to judge.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my life, my free will. I never walked in his shoes. So who am I to judge, right? But just God, highest possible outcome, whatever it can be.
Yeah.
And basically, I thought, oh, maybe I'm nervous, maybe whatever. Because when you have a Kundalini awakening, you shake. And one of the things you feel is you like shake uncontrollably and you feel this sense of like electricity. And everybody who's having describes the same. And it's like, and trust me, I used a lot of drugs. I have no problem admitting that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say that something is the greatest high I've ever felt in my life, the most euphoric feeling, I know,
Mm-hmm.
like two overdoses, trust me, right?
Yeah.
And but it's a very distinct thing. You feel electricity running up down your spine. It's a certain feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I started shaking and feeling the electricity and the bliss. And I'm like getting nervous. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to be like, Clyde made this woman come in here and now she's shaking
Yeah.
uncontrollably like with a butt. And when I opened my eyes and looked at him, I realized that he was experiencing the exact same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like his hands are still trembling. Mine had stopped, but his arms are trembling, like just that light vibration. And I looked at him and something had shifted in his eyes. And I said, well, what happened? What did you see? What's going on? And he goes, I don't know. He's like, whatever it was, like I just felt this powerful surge of energy all of a sudden. I saw this really bright light. And then he's like, I felt this peace and this feeling I've never felt before. He's like, and then I feel like this electric current, like going up and down my spine and my arms, but it feels really good, but it's cold and it's hot. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay. And I said to him, and I said, what is it like? Is it like, would you describe the energy as going like,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
what it feels like. And he goes, yeah. Right? And I asked and I heard, check, did this man have a Kundalini awakening right now?
What?
And he did. And
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, how on earth? Right? But sometimes some people have a divine time clock where it just comes up, happens, right?
Yeah.
And like
So you were talking to this guy. You were
I was
having the awakening at
like,
that
oh, I
point.
had already had
Okay, you
mine, so
had
I knew what it felt like
okay.
and what it was like. Yeah.
And then you're talking to him and he's shaking and
As right after the energy clearings and work was run. Yeah,
okay.
because at that point, I was channeling, calling in his ancestors, his guides, his whoever, his highest self,
Yeah.
himself from past lives, like anybody and everybody who could guide him to the best decision, best possible outcome, to be with him, protect him, clearing soul contracts around having to struggle,
Mhm.
carry certain burdens, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And then I just had to, as any healer, any psychic, you then have to let it go. Now that
Mhm.
person, they have information, they have whatever, their free will takes it.
Yeah.
And it was like the next day I came back, I remember. And Clyde was like, so I'm there and I'm like, okay, I'm expecting I'm not going to see this guy because we don't know what happened. Like, he's
Mhm.
not going to tell Clyde, hey,
Yeah.
and miraculously, like 10 minutes into class, he shows up. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here, right?
Mhm.
Like, what's happening? And Clyde pulls me aside. He goes, hey, I don't know what you did. He's like, but you're not going to believe it. It's like, he's like, he left here like yesterday, he said, and he basically called off the hit. He called off
Mhm.
everything,
Mhm.
and wants to step down and exit. Like,
Yeah.
mind you, this is somebody who grew up in gangs. It's generational.
Yeah.
All the life he's ever known is
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And he was like, he knows whatever's going to happen. Somebody else is now going to take over
Yeah.
that role.
So once he had that awakening, what exactly did that mean for him?
Well, I said, well, what did he do? What happened? And Clyde goes, he went to the beach and meditated. And I go, he's never meditated in his day. This guy's
Yeah.
never meditated in his life.
Yeah.
But he went to the beach after he said it and he meditated, and that's what he did.
Wow. And so once you have one of these awakenings, does that mean he had spiritual gifts as well?
They develop as you are ready to process them.
Mm.
So basically, whatever degree to which you can handle it,
Mhm.
because it is very shattering to your life. A lot of weird
Mhm.
stuff, right? All of a
Mhm.
sudden, you see the people in your life who you thought had your back, and then you can see the truth of them, and it's
Yeah.
painful. Like, it's not easy,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
you see yourself and your decisions different way. But
Mhm.
to sum it up, like, I was able to meet his son and his fiance at his
Mhm.
graduation weeks later
Wow.
because,
Yeah.
right? And then at that point, he was already working with his mother in her daycare business and trying to figure out a way to get legitimate work and to
Mhm.
exit
Mhm.
all of that stuff.
Wow.
hmm
So that is a pretty amazing
Yeah,
experience.
because there's a
Like,
lot of life changing things for people, but like
yeah.
that to me, I don't know, like maybe because I resonate with people who've had to struggle or who've had to
Mhm.
go through certain things,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? That takes a whole different thing that I couldn't comprehend.
Yeah.
But it's like for someone like that, because now you're talking about danger to his life, to his
Mhm.
family, that is a big decision to make that
Mhm.
takes a lot of
Yeah.
courage to do.
Wow. And you were a big part of that.
Yeah, I just say, God does the work.
Yeah.
I just go,
Yeah.
God starts doing all these things.
Yeah.
But like that's when I realize, oh my God, the power
Yeah.
that can be in something.
So I know you're rooted in God, right?
hmm
Like you say
Yeah.
it over and over
Yeah, or
again,
I
and
say source, creator
uh-huh.
consciousness, because people get all caught up in the word,
Mhm.
oh, I'm atheist, whatever, you believe
Mhm.
in gravity, you believe in the universe, universal laws, whatever,
Yeah.
quantum
Yeah.
physics, then, to me, the word God resonates. For some people, I'll say, okay, are you
Mhm.
more comfortable with creator or like
Mhm.
source consciousness or spirit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But to me, that's just what resonates
Yeah.
because that's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah. hmm
So when do people ever come to you and say, like, don't come near me, like that's the devil's work, or, that's just all, it's not a gift, it's, evil.
Yes, there are like people like that, and I don't like. I think I'm pretty good in that. I've set up so many barriers. I don't tend to attract too many,
Mhm.
but what I do explain to people as well, and I say, you want to be careful if whether or not somebody's a good fit for me. I know I'm a bit crass. I know I'm like
Mhm.
unfiltered, so
Mhm.
I'm not for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but I say if you're choosing a reader, be careful. I say because you know, you can get psychic gifts and messages from a lot of things. You can get them from spirits that are trapped. You can get them from your ancestors. You can get them from demons, for crying out loud. So what is that reader or somebody reading through? And that's where a lot of this, I think, gets a bad name, because a lot of people don't develop the higher connection themselves. They don't do the things that they need to do. You know what I mean? Or most importantly, their heart is not in the right place in regards to why they want those gifts or why they want to use it. You know what I mean? And so I tell people, yes, there is a lot of that rooted in that. But just like anything else, right? There's good, there's bad, and all in between. That's like saying all wealthy people are evil.
Right.
Yeah, are there some? Absolutely, but not everybody, right?
So what do you say? Because I've heard people say, well, we all have a psychic ability in us.
Yeah.
We just have to develop it. Do you think that that's true?
I think that it's true, but the hardest thing is like the psychic ability and gifts comes from like it's like from the majority of people who aren't like me, who inherited or born as quote unquote naturals, right? The way you have to start it is following your intuition and your gut, which is 99% of the time going to be against what the human logic and the ego wants. So people can't even cross over. They can't, if you can't even pass the first grade, you can't go to college, right? And so too many people question. That's why I said for you, you're actually very powerful, because you feel it and you're like, no, just like you're like, no, I ain't bringing you around here, this place. And you acted on that. A lot of people can't do that. Oh, well, you know, it's weird because I normally do here. I'm normally there. They're going to think this and that. No, you're like, no, I'm standing firm on my boundaries. That's the first step. So everybody does have the ability, but it's just like they don't recognize or know how to read the signs, or they don't listen to it when it's trying to come in. They listen to what? Obligation, to this. Oh, because of this and that, they might judge me in this way, or that doesn't make logical sense, even though it feels right. Right? That's why most people don't get to develop it.
Wow. So interesting. I mean, this is one of my favorite topics, honestly. Right? It's like, it's just so, I look at, it's almost like a talent, right? I mean, maybe that's, I don't know what you call it. I mean, it's a gift. It's a gift, but I mean, it's just, I feel like it's God-given, and the way people want to take it or use it, that's on them.
And that's what I say all the time, your intent, because I've had people that want to develop certain gifts and certain things so bad, and they have these barriers, and I'll go, it's because your intent of why you want it and what you need it for is not pure. God is not going to grant you those gifts. Maybe you can go talk to some demons and do some whatever, and get it there, but God's not going to give it to you if God knows that your heart places because you want to manipulate people, you want to trick people, or you want to use it to take advantage of people. No, you ain't going to get it.
It's like, let me just say I'm a psychic and go make some money.
Yes, exactly, right? Like, and sometimes there's like people, I'll read like the email, I'll look and I go, no, you're not for me, or like, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so after all of this, you know, you do all of this psychic work and intuitive work and all this healing, you know, work. You are also, on top of that, a model, entrepreneur. How do you have time with all of these spirits in your ear?
Well, that's why I went to school, because I was like, at one point I was like, I can't with all these things.
And how do you focus?
I needed to separate those worlds, and going through training, like I call it my X-Men school, right? I was like, that's what allowed me to be able to shut them off when I need to and to do those things. But I think having my gifts gives me an advantage, because it tells me where to go, when to go. Like I said, even if I'm like, ooh, because sometimes God will test you, right? You'll get this like blessing. Do you think it's a blessing? And it's like 95% of what you want. And you're like, okay. But like, you know, there's also part of that faith is like, no, do like, you know, what you send out to the universe, God, if you settle for that, that's like 95%. You know, you don't know what's like, with the other 5% could be like complete hell, drama, right? Legal battles. And so it's like trusting that faith in God. If God says no, right? That you have to trust that God will bring it to you in the right time, exactly what you want. And so that's how I live, right? Even if an opportunity looks good, if God's like, no, they ain't for you. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I hear myself be like, man, what? Like, come on, like, what's the problem now, right? What you mean this ain't for me yet? Like, I've been waiting. And so that's it. So at least it helps me to know where to put my energy, where to place it.
That's definitely an advantage.
Yeah, but everything keeps me on the go. And so that's why, like, even like we talked about, like dating life, etc. It is not easy. Like people are like, oh, there'll be a lot of men that want to date me or think like, oh, this is great, and she does her own thing, she makes her own money. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's just go take off on this vacation, do this or that. No, I can't. I got things to handle.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's sometimes the barrier. But to me, it's like my purpose, what I'm trying to do. I believe so firmly, okay, when it is the right time, it will be aligned with me, that the exact person that gets it, understands it, can flow with it, and not try to change it to me, because I'm not going to try to change them,
Okay.
Like, let that be that.
Okay. So we've come to the time where we are going to raise our glass.
Thank you,
and
my
you
dear.
are going to spill some tea.
Okay.
She probably already knows what I'm going to ask. Okay. So, married or single?
Okay, so single-ish. Right?
Single-ish. Okay. And that's a two-part question.
Yeah.
So, you're single-ish.
Yeah.
Is this because you already know what the men are going to do before they do it?
Well, it's funny. It's like karmically, you'll be shielded to an extent, so that because we have to play out karma with people, right? So
Okay.
I'll know usually within 2 weeks. Like, I'll be like, okay, you gotta play this thing out with this person. You two are gonna have whatever, and then they'll be exposed to karma for you to clear, right? So that's always an interesting thing, like knowing something's not gonna go somewhere or meant to be, and then still having to do it.
So you're like, I'll just go to dinner 3 times.
No, but I'm still human to where I won't go out with them, and if I don't feel that connection, so I'll be enjoying the process, and then sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, but I know I've already been told that this thing, whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So that's interesting. So it's quite a thing. And then sometimes it'll be like, okay, in the long run, this won't work, but like you two will do great business together. You stay friends in this life. But I'm still damn human, right? So even with gifts, you are still a human. You have your flaws. You have your, like I heal my wounds, like, because I'm a energy work. I'm always looking at myself. But like, like I saw my qualities. I know I'm like a little stubborn sometimes, a little bullheaded, a bit intensive in energy, right? And so that's why it's like ish, like, I know
single-ish.
It's single-ish. Like I know where something like I ended recently where it's like, yes, they were not. There was something there that they're at fault and I'm at fault both. But it's not something like, it's one of those things to where it's also like, okay, I also know I'm being a little bullheaded.
Yeah.
Like a little maybe more whatever.
How interesting though, because I mean, I take it like this. You can literally, a guy asks you out and you're like, sure, yeah, let's go out. But you've already played in your head that you're going to go to dinner a few times, you're going to fight twice.
Well, it's normally like it's once you've gone out like once or twice, you know? But the hard thing is just like a human emotion would be for a woman. Like I'll be like, oh my God, but I know, like, but I really like this person right now. Like I can't believe this isn't gonna work. But then something will happen that I'll be like, oh no, I can't deal with that in my life or that aspect. It doesn't have to be things like, oh, infidelity, this, that.
Right.
It can just be like, no, like we don't mesh in this way. Like our lifestyles don't work. Or you want a quiet, subtle life in a certain way. I'm not that woman to bring that to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my mother was a businesswoman who raised children still and whatever, right? But like some people want traditional only in a certain sense. And I can respect that, but I also know what's not me, right?
Right. Yeah. I feel like I'm the same way. Like, we say like traditional is great, but I don't know if I could just completely do stay at home and because I do have the entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah. And it's hard for me just to sit back. But I mean, I enjoy being at home when we're at home. But yeah, definitely the business side, it's like, like it has to just come out. Like I have to. You know?
And like I say ish because like right now it's like, okay, I admit, like, dating, getting to know new people and stuff. But like the previous partner I had that it's like, okay, I like realized like we run into each other nonstop. We couldn't avoid it. And it was funny because he also has spiritual advisors and he's, very successful entrepreneur in all of his endeavors and everything else. But the thing is, it's also difficult because he had this intuitive sense, like the one thing that like to me, but like I said, I'm dramatic. I'm like, okay, you did this, I'm upset, or you said the wrong thing. I'm gonna pack all my stuff and I'm out the door the next morning. But he saw me a couple events later, like literally less than a week later, we'd run each other 4 times. And I remember saying to me like, we're not over yet. You know that,
Yeah.
right?
You're
And
like, have you been
normally,
talking to a
yeah,
psychic?
like normally some motherfucker than me, like I'd be like, oh really, like,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
he's intuitive too to an extent. Like
Yeah.
when we were dating, he was telepathically connected to me to where he could hear or read or feel my thoughts,
So is
right?
that a thing? Is that a
Yes.
real
When two
thing?
people are intuitive, especially, it's
Oh.
much stronger. So imagine like getting into fights with people about things you're thinking.
Yeah.
Like I know you thinking about me right now.
Yeah.
Like
So
like
that's like
right?
when you call each other and all of a sudden someone's like, "Oh, I was just about to call you," or "I was
Yeah.
just about to text you,"
Yeah.
or yeah.
And so honestly, like I know and understand that God's like, yeah, no, you two aren't done.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
right? And so that's kind of like, okay, yes, I am open to that or considering or going into that. Like, okay,
Mhm.
because that is one person who understands all aspects
Mhm.
of like
Mhm.
certain things, and that's a hard thing for me to come
Mhm.
about.
Okay.
Hmm.
Wow. So interesting. Dating life is definitely on a different level
It
with
is
you.
because like I'll be all like over the place, but like I said, I don't
Yeah.
connect on those like deeper like the soul levels or
Yeah.
whatever with somebody, and
Mhm.
so and like we said, like when you're an entrepreneur, it's a different thing.
Mhm.
Like I know that I will put my business and my money making the things I want to do first and foremost,
Mhm.
and so that's why like with that one individual that I'm like, okay, I never go back into a relationship or consider doing whatever, but
Mhm.
I've reflected. I got over my stubbornness. I never had
Yeah.
no hatred,
Yeah.
resentment,
Yeah.
problems
Yeah.
with them. Like we always were good, but it was more so just like, do we work as a couple or not?
Mhm.
And then I looked at it and I reflected and I started dating people and I go, even my friend said, she's like, you two have a certain magic, certain whatever.
Mhm.
And then I was like, okay, God, do I need to look like, there was something that was said to her and I heard, okay, I remember her saying to her, so this person said this to you when I walked away at the event, like,
Mhm.
okay, interesting. And I asked God, I said, why did they say this to her specifically? And God goes, because they know that, them not making you feel this one particular way or feeling
Mhm.
safe in a certain way
Mhm.
is why you left and
Mhm.
walked away to begin with. And they understand and they know, reflected on that, and they want to
Mhm.
ensure that, like, where they feel they fell short, that, like, you know what I mean, that they are
Yeah.
willing to work on that or to realize and understand how they messed up there.
Mhm.
And then it was like, but you need to look at you now and go,
Right.
where are you being to whatever? And I was like, oh, I already know where I
You're
am.
like, I know my
Yeah,
downfall.
yeah, I know. And I was like,
Yeah.
then now I'm working
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. Okay. So we've concluded that you're single-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is your dream man?
Somebody, gosh, like it's somebody like, this sounds so bad, but it's somebody who's a
And
lot like
well,
me,
oh, no,
who's
that
like a
doesn't sound bad.
go-getter, like, well, because I'm like, does that sound narcissistic? I don't know, I don't care, I'm
Yeah.
just saying. But like, I love events, I love parties, I
Mhm.
love the spotlight, all those things, you know
Uh-huh.
what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm a social butterfly. And so it has to be somebody who's like that
Mhm.
and understands that and also can carry their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they have to love fashion, like I'm not certain if I'll ever have children or want to have children. I'm not
Mhm.
certain. I
Mhm.
say it's God's will. It's in God's hands. Like
So you
uh,
don't ever try to tap into that and say
I
and
there's
ask like, will I have two girls or a boy and a girl or
I
will I have a
know
child?
there's like two spirits, especially one that follows me a lot that I've known for many years is like,
Oh.
guiding me, but also, was originally soul contract reborn to me, you know.
Are you like, hold on, don't come yet?
Yeah,
Like,
but I know
oh
I'm
my
running. Like I
God.
know, like basically, one of my because I have my own psychic for like certain things I can't see my
Mhm.
own self or that I
Okay.
don't want to see,
Mhm.
and she jokes me and we laugh and she goes like, oh, like, and I've heard it from many others that because many of my friends are psychic too, like you better be careful, like because this soul is trying to push in already, meaning that like, and you can't keep delaying
Oh
her.
wow.
Like you pushed it
So you
too
know it's a
far.
girl.
It's a girl, yeah. And so like and so and I'm like, oh, I know, I'm aware. And it's like it's interesting because I actually had a client. I was working
So
with her
interesting.
daughter when her daughter was 11 years old. So at this time she's like 16 now, but the time
Mhm.
she's 11, she's like, I think my daughter's intuitive. And I remember like when I was reading her daughter, and this was like in person because I knew the mother very well, and
Mhm.
she hires me to host big events for her, and she was like giggling and laughing, the girls. I'm reading her, And I could sense like the spirits, the two little kids there. I
Uh-huh.
said, "Oh, like what's making you laugh? What's making you giggle?" She's like, "Oh, well, I just like feel like the presence of two little kids. Like I see a pink light and a blue light, and they're whatever." And so she could pick up on them already there by me at 11 years old, right? And
Wow.
her mother was having me work on her. She's like, "They say she has ADD, all this stuff." I don't think so. I think she
Yeah.
has intuitive gifts. She's distracted. Well, you tell me what you get.
Yeah.
And then I was like, your daughter's definitely an intuitive. She
Wow.
just sees and perceives so much outside that she's not focusing in class. So here's what would be good to
Yeah.
help.
So you pretty much just said you have two little spirits that follow you around, a boy and a girl. Do you have names picked out?
No, because
does that like set it in stone? Is that
no,
like you
because
calling that?
and even then, it's funny because it's like, okay, when most of them would be like, oh, Dream Man, like, okay, he wants this many kids, this whatever, and I'm
Yeah.
like, he's gonna have to be patient with it, the fact I'm undecided,
Wow.
and like I said, if it's God's will, it's meant to happen.
Yeah.
God will make it happen.
Okay.
I just kind of give it to God, and even in dating, that's a thing for me because somebody has to be like into fitness, into whatever. Like, how do they fit into my life? Because,
What happens if you don't like pull the trigger on those on those children, right? Like, and they're not born and they want to be born. Like, does it travel into another
the
lifetime?
likely,
Like,
yeah, travel into lifetime, or it's possible that they may try to be born to like a family member
oh,
within,
yeah.
my lineage. Because
And
part
then
of
they're
what
like, girl, we got here anyway.
yeah, because part of what they want specifically
Yeah.
is like the intuitive gifts that they can inherit through our DNA. That's what part of why they're here,
Oh.
what they want,
Wow. So
Yeah.
I make like jokes about it, but no, seriously, it is so interesting. Like,
It's like,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
Mhm.
Okay, so tell me before we start
Mhm.
wrapping this up, what does the average day in your life look like?
Okay.
Morning to night. Open your eyes, close your eyes.
Okay. So when I first wake up, I am not a morning person.
Mm-hmm.
So I will not even like really start, my work until like I like to start people at the earliest, maybe 9 a.m. or something, because I'm not a
Okay.
morning person. I'm
Okay.
just not gonna do it. I'm grumpy. So I really don't eat much when I first wake up. Like I'm like a have my caffeine kind of
Mm-hmm.
girl. I fast. I don't like to be whatever.
We are
And
twins.
I take like a full like hour to wake up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I gotta like wake up, like spend an hour just waking up before I can even get ready.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Just
Uh-huh.
how I am.
Yeah.
Usually I am logging what came up and messages in my dreams, getting that all down and trying to psychically read, understand the codes of it. What do I need to know? And then I'll just kind of log in. A lot of the times, even during the week, I will work with clients for several hours in the day, really only get a short enough break to eat maybe once. I try to schedule a workout right after them, and then I'll oftentimes have an event that I'm going to that evening, and then I might be out until 2, 3 a.m., and I come back. And so, like, it's always kind of a go,
That's
go,
just
go.
your schedule.
Yeah,
That's
that's what I do. It's like, and it's always different in the sense of like the experiences of the clients I have, the whatever. But that's kind of like how my days usually are. And so it's just, okay, what is the event? What is the
Yeah.
thing? What's going on now?
Okay. So any projects coming up that you want to talk about in the near future?
Yeah, we are currently now working on getting like my own podcast going, and like, it's gonna be focused on like, yes, interviewing people a lot about like, reading. So doing things like I said, in the spiritual community, I know I'll get a lot of people who are probably going to talk crap like, oh, you're not supposed to show your sexuality or be sexually dressed a certain way. That's always something they say. Like, you're not supposed, and I got so much of that crap when I was in school. God, girls telling me like, oh, no one will take you seriously. You're not going to get clients. It's not spiritual, and all that, right? And my own teacher saying, okay, how long you been doing this? And I'm like, 1 year. She's like, I can look at your life, and she's like, I see energetically you are high maintenance as fish, right? She's like, a nice gardener, everybody, very shoes, birds, everything. And I know how you live. She's like, how long have some of them, and she goes, what's your full-time work? I said, this. And she goes, okay, how long have some of these women been doing this? I said, 10, 15 years, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, and how many of those women in this class of 10 are doing this full-time that they can support themselves fully in it? And even close to the lifestyle you do. And I go, one. And she goes, so why the hell would you listen to them?
That's right.
about who you have to be. She said, your authentic self is why people like you. You keep it real. She said, some won't like you. Who cares? Right? She's like, if you doing this after a year and a half full time, living the lifestyle you are, and doing this full time,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. So my thing will be like the bikini reader. So it's gonna be like, like in a hot tub, like kind of crazy, edgy,
the bikini
whatever.
reader.
And people that are like, not within maybe the traditional construct of spirituality. Maybe people who have resistance, right? Who are not exposed to this, because then it's to show, hey, this is how it benefits life. The majority of my clients, a lot of them are like, entrepreneurs, millionaires, billionaires, people coming to me for big ass decisions. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I can't run away from my ghosts and get a ghetto pass, so I do have some interesting cases, but like, and how it is, you run around in the circles of entertainment and hip hop, you're going to have some interesting cases.
Yes.
But I like that. My soul likes to,
and
it's who
what
I am.
you like.
So my podcast will be focused on that, and it's like to kind of take it so people know spirituality is for them too.
Yeah.
And that's going to be my main thing of focus right now.
Awesome.
That's the next big thing for us.
Well, I cannot wait to watch and see what
I
you
hope
do.
you'll come on, because I would love to read you on
Oh
there.
my God.
Like, you fit the mold of exactly what kind of guest I want. I'm like, all the curves, all the style, everything,
I'm so ready. Like, you just call me and I'm there. Oh my goodness. Well, you know already if I'm lying or not.
Oh, I know.
No, I'm there though. Seriously. And again, I wish you all the success.
Thank you
so much for coming.
having me.
This was an amazing show.
Thank
I mean, I
you
really,
so much,
this is one of my favorites. I really loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time and just, sharing your gifts with me, with us.
Thank you.
And yeah, I hope to see you again soon. Where can we find you on social media?
Okay. Well, you can find me most easily right now on Instagram. It's at Carla Maria XOXO, and that's CarlamaRiaXOXO.
Nice. All right, guys. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tea with Trish. We will see you guys next time. Remember to like and subscribe.
Thank you.